welcome to the far west of Sicily in the south. And wait for it, we've got something beautiful. Oh! Hello from Selinunte. Today I have brought my group here to see some of the most magnificent Greek temples that exist in the world, even in Greece. We have really in Sicily some of the temples that are even more well preserved. They're different. They're not made of the same materials. The construction technique was just a little bit different, but these temples were made by Greek people. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, why are the Greeks in Sicily? If you go back to the time of the Peloponnesian War, so let's talk about the 400s BC, this is when Greece was getting overpopulated. There wasn't enough room for everybody. The rocky soil there couldn't provide enough food for everybody who wanted to be there. So settlers decided to move. So people would get into their boats and they would come over and find a better place to live. Think about manifest destiny of Americans, in the 19th century. Similar idea. They had the concept of manifest destiny. So they got into their boats and they went to find a better place to live. And they landed here in Sicily. In fact, the Mycenaeans had been here a long time before them. So they knew that Sicily existed and had a lot of resources. And back then, it was about resources, right? How do you make food? How do you build things? How do you find all of the things that you need? You can't go to Home Depot, right? So they come here and they find a beautiful island with great temperature, all kinds of great resources, fertile soil, and they start to colonize. So the Greek people colonized essentially the eastern coast and the southern coast of Sicily. At the same time, the Carthaginians or the Phoenicians colonized the west and the north side. And they had it pretty good. The only problem was because they came from each of these different Greek cities, they came with their own personal beefs with other cities, but also with the Carthaginians. So they kind of played out their psychodramas from home here. They also wanted to have an impressive city that they could impress the other Greeks and the Carthaginians. Anybody who would approach, they wanted to make sure they made a statement about how great their civilization was. So here in Selinunte, this is just one of many ancient Greek cities that we have in Sicily. And it was called at the time, in the 400s BC, Magna Graecia, Greater Greece. The one city you've probably heard of is Syracuse. That was such an incredibly glorious city back then that it rivaled ancient Athens. This city didn't rival ancient Athens, but it sure feels like it should have. So Selinunte, or Selinus in the past, and this temple is one of the best preserved that we have anywhere. And here's what the magic about it is. Not only is it well preserved, it's been reconstructed, obviously. You can tell, if you look at those lower parts there, you can see they're too perfect. Anything that's too perfect means that it was a reconstruction. The jumbly looking parts, that's the original. This is what it looked like before. There are 3 temples here, Temple E, F, and G, and they all look like that in the past, but only this one has been reconstructed. But here's what's really special about it. We can go in it. So go ahead and follow me up the steps. Now from here you can kind of see that the steps are a little arched like this, right? This is called entasis, and what they've done is they've arched the steps just a little bit so that when you look at it from a distance, they look straight because they understood that your eyeball had a curvature. Same thing with the columns. The columns are bent just a little bit so that it makes up for the curvature of your eyeball. Which, think about it, 2,500 years ago, and they figured that stuff out. It's incredible. This is one of the very few Greek temples that I know of that you can actually go into. Now, if we were Greek people, we wouldn't be in here because the temple was only for the priests. You would have left something out here. So you can see the pile of stones. Here-ish, that would have been the altar. And that's where you as a normal human would have come and left your offering. And you could have prayed to whatever god was important. So each temple had a different god. Let's say you were praying for a baby. There was a certain god you would go to and offer a sacrifice there. And then the priest would come in here to the cella, the inner sanctum. And we are standing right now on the pronaos, which is like the anteroom, and then there was the inner area here. Now this all faces the sunrise, so that means that probably about here where that guy is standing, there would have been a giant golden statue of a god that the sun would have lit up. And it was all put together to be almost like a solar clock. So at different times of the year, the temple would take on different characteristics. Right here at Selinunte, the reason I wanted to bring my group here, not only for this magnificent temple, but have a look at the sighting. We are right on the edge. And over here, if you take a look, there's another temple in the distance, and that's because there's an Acropolis up there. There's an actual whole city up there. Now later today we're going to go to the Valley of the Temples, and the Valley of the Temples has just the temples. The city itself has been buried by the modern city of Agrigento, but this out here is the ancient Greek city. So we're going to take a little trenino, one of those little like kiddie trains, over there so that we have a chance to see that as well. But you know, what I was just telling my group is that the thing you have to take in about this site is the magnificence and the type of magical thinking that you needed to be able to build something like this 2,500 years ago. This isn't the most sophisticated building you'll ever see. And in fact, the Greeks were not sophisticated builders. They built like Legos. Each of these drums is a solid block with a pin in it, either metal or wood, and they'd stack them, and they didn't even have fluting on them. They'd stack them up as high as they needed, and then the carvers would come in after and make these grooves to make it look really beautiful and uniform. But it's really just like children's building blocks. They're not sophisticated structures, but they are. The Romans are going to impress you with tunnels, arches, aqueducts, all of these things. But the thing that the Greeks do is they have an elegance and a sensitivity to the way we perceive architecture. Romans, as a friend of mine always say, built things to defeat you. The Greeks built things to harmonize with you. And it's not just the proportions. The proportions are wonderful. Of course, the colors are beautiful, but also the vibration. One of the funny things about it is as they would take the stone out of the quarries, they would hit it with a tuning fork and listen to the pitch to make sure every stone had the same pitch. So this is essentially like a giant wind instrument. They believed that the air passing through it would create a vibration that would make the people who live there feel calm. It was a way to promote social harmony. So I don't think that the Romans ever thought anything about that. So you can be impressed by Roman architecture because it's impressive, but when you come to see Greek architecture, you're wowed by a very different thing, and that is the humanity and the spiritual aspect of the temples. So a little piece of Greece here in Sicily, and if you've been to Greece before, you might actually find that the temples in Sicily are more beautiful. I do, but I'm definitely biased. So there you go, just a little tidbit to start your day off here in Selinunte on the coast of Sicily. And later this afternoon, we're going to head to the Valley of the Temples, and I'll take you for just a little wander through there, which is a site I know very well. This one is such a lovely site. It's the largest archaeological park in Europe. I'm going to take you over to see the piles of what remains of these temples. These temples, if they were reconstructed, would be some of the largest Greek temples in the world. So we need to find somebody very wealthy who wants a pet project to come out and put this broken set of Lego blocks back together. Look at that. So you can see in the drums there, the holes for the pins. So somebody out there needs to make the decision to come and help us put these blocks back together. But this is also kind of the wonder of Sicily, is that this site has been largely ignored for a very long time. It doesn't get as many visitors as the Valley of the Temples, so in some ways it's quite well preserved. So that's all for now from the west coast of Sicily at the archaeological site of Selinunte. I will be back with you later today from Agrigento at the Valley of the Temples. Ciao for now.